Hello! Today we are going to talk about how to work with multiple queries and multiple results in the query language. For that I also have added to the cheat sheet, which you can find in the manual under query cheat sheet. I added a whole section about how to work with multiple queries, and in this video I just go through it and show you the different things that you can do. So first of all, when you want to execute multiple queries in one query, you can just separate and end one query with the semicolon and start a new query after it. So when we execute this, you see the first query here will give us 3 records, that's what we see here. And the second query gives us 7 records. Now, we also want to have a little bit control. How do we want to display these different results? So what we can do is actually there is this global property called multi-display, and we can set a number to this. And the number basically is the number of columns the results will be displayed in. So as you see, I define here 2, and the results will be displayed with 2 columns. I can also say here 3. So we will have 3 columns. If we add more, 1, 2, these are 5, good. If we add more results, then you will see that after the results, the other results will be added. Now, what do we do if we don't want to have these columns the same size? So what we can do is we can say, instead of defining the number of columns, we can give it a ratio between columns. So for example, 30% and 70%. So you see the first column is 30% width and the other one is 70% width. This doesn't have to be percentage. It can also just be any kind of number, for example 2 to 1. So in this case it's really just a ratio that you provide. So the first is 2 and the other one has a ratio of 1. Good. The next one that we can do with that, instead of providing a number or an array, what we can do is we can set multi-display to true, and then we can control for every result how much percentage in width it will take, and we do that with the multi% property with the metadata command. So difference between global is for all the queries. So you can, everything that you set in globals you can use in all the queries, and meta are only properties that you can access within this specific query. For example, if you set here a property, you can only use it in this source. If you set in the next query here a property, you can only access it in this source. The multi% is a special one. It's specifically used to set this column width. So what we get when we do this, we get one result with 30%, the other one with 70%, and then we have one result that takes the whole width. This can be very useful when you want to build more complex views. I can show you that, for example, this one. This one makes multiple charts. And as you see, we have like one chart with 100%, 2 charts with 50, 3 with 33%, and then we have some that have various width. and with that you can build very complex views. I can show you an example how I was using that I was just building recently. So this is an analysis dashboard that we are using for load testing with Gatlytron. And I have here an example where I use such a query with various different sizes of results. For example, I have here a result, this is a result, then this whole table in the full width is a result. I have here two results with 50% width, and this one is also one single result that shows multiple charts. Similar here, very similar view, just different data. Yeah, I can show you the query shortly. So this one is a little bit more complex, but we see we have here the multi-display that is true, and then for every other display I give it a title, a name which will be displayed as a title. I give it a description so the people will know what is in that specific result, and I give it a percentage, and then I just do that over and over again. Good. And this is basically, it will just always fill up one row until it reaches 100%, and then it will create the next row. So with that you can control how much you have on one specific row. Good. Now we can, another thing that we can do with multiple queries is we can mimic a query. So what is mimicking a query? So we have one query, and then we want to execute the same query again, but we don't want to write this specific query 5 times because maybe it's 10 commands or 15 commands. So what we do is we give this query a name, and then we can mimic it by this name. So in this one we create 5 records, and this is this one, and this is the mimic of the previous one. We can as well do display as panels, and you see also the display is copied. So basically what mimic does is it takes all the commands except for meta and keep, as far as I know, and executes them, and then you get basically the results again that you then can otherwise manipulate. You can do additional statistics or something like that. Another thing that you can do with the mimic command is you can define one query as a template. For example, this query here is now a template because we set the metadata template to true. That means this query will actually not be executed on its own. So it will just be a template. And then what we can do is we define the metadata for this query. So we need the records. So we set it to 4 records. And then we mimic this template and execute this template with 4 records. And then we do the same with 8 records. So when I execute this, I'll get one result with 4 records and one with 8 records here in total. This can be very useful if you have like the same query, but you want to have certain different data that you load based on certain parameters. So you can set these parameters with the record with the metadata command, and use them in your query as you see fit. Good. So then when we already have multiple results, so we created multiple results, we can also do certain things with it. For example, we have one result here, and we want to do certain things with the same result, with the same data. So we don't want to execute the same query over and over again, because that's just a waste of time. So what we can do is we take this data and we copy it with the result copy. So we take this name here and say copy the result of this query that's named data. And then we take this data and further use it. So in this case we make statistics on first name, and we just count by first name. Then we copy the same data and make statistics by last name. And at the end, we don't really want to display the raw data. So what we can say, we want to remove this data here. That's quite a common pattern. So when we execute this, we get the count statistics by first name and we get the count statistics by last name. We can as well do something like SQL. So we can join results together. Let me show you how this data looks if we don't join it together. So we have two tables, basically one with an index and a first name, and the second one is an index and a last name. And now we want to join this together. So what we by index, so we can use the result join command, which by default takes the last two results. You can also specify them by name. And then we say we want to join on index and we want to do an inner join. Good. If we have results from multiple queries and we just want to have everything in one result, we can concatenate this. So we have 1, 3, 7 results, 7 records, and all this is concatenated into one result. This is basically similar like union in SQL. However, this one does not care if the columns are the same or not. If you have just, let's see, first name, last name. So if one has not the exact match, it doesn't matter. If something has more columns, test equals test, it also doesn't matter. So it will just add the records together into one single record in one single result. Too much result and record in this conversation. Yeah, and like this you can make your one table, maybe from different sources or something like that. One very powerful thing, especially when you are working with time series and you want to compare between different times, we have a command called result compare. And this result compare, you can take two tables that have same column names and say, please compare me all the rows, and this is identifying a row. For example, here what we do, we have statistics that are by first name and likes tiramisu. We do this twice, so we have it here and we have it here. Let's show you how the raw thing looks. So this is the raw statistics, just counts by first name and likes tiramisu. And we have this twice. And now we say please compare. So we compare by first name and likes tiramisu. And this is what we get. So we have the first name and every person has three things, false, null or true regarding likes tiramisu. And then we have here the counts that are compared between these two results. There are a lot of options on this result compare. So you can also define all the labels. And if you want to compare percentages and absolutes or booleans and strings and so on. So this is what you get by default. So you get the value of the first result, the value of the second result. You get the absolute difference. So in this case, it's -1. You get the difference in percentage, which is -1% here. Nice that we have exactly 100 here. That makes for a good example. We have value first and second, value diff, and value percentage. So it just takes all the columns by name and compares them between these two results. Good. We already had the join and we had, okay, I see. I'm in the middle of writing this and I see I still have to delete these guys here because I don't need them anymore. Good, so that's basically a short introduction how you can work with multiple results. And yeah, I hope it helps you to create very nice views. Is there anything else that I can show you? One thing, exactly, I added this as well, subqueries. Also something that I haven't documented yet. You can create subqueries. So we have one source here, and then we have a subquery that is using another source that can, for example, be you grab data from a database and want to grab additional data from a web API. And then you can do this with a subquery and just insert the values by concatenating it. Just be aware that the subquery is needs quite a lot of performance because it will be executed for every record. So if you have 100, this will be executed 100 times. If you have 1,000, this will be executed 1,000 times. Doesn't have to take too long depending on what you are doing, right? Good. Yeah, I think that's it. So have fun. Wish you good day, good Christmas, happy Easter, and whatever else there is that you can enjoy.